Some hae meat and canna eat, and some would eat that want it. But we hae meat and we can eat, and say the Lord be thankit. And welcome to the Bothy Storytelling Podcast. I'm your host, Calum, Lykan, and this is our third episode all about Burns. I'm probably going to have to change the titles. They're starting to get a bit similar. But yes, this episode is all about Rabbie Burns, the Bard of Scotland. And I'm not ashamed to say that I had a spectacular Burns day, and I'm still recovering from it. So, quite frankly, the hangover has ceased to exist, but the body is still suffering from overindulgence. So here we go, with a wee session all about the Bard himself. Today I'm going to be reciting some Burns. I'm going to tell you a wee bit about the man. I actually found an old immortal memory that I was asked to do about 3 or 4 years ago, I think. And I kind of read it and thought, oh, this is terrible. But at the same time, I kind of want to recite it to yourselves. It might give you a wee idea of how us people from Scotland view the Bard, especially myself, who was born in Ayrshire. I was born in Ayr, which is about 3 miles away from where the man himself was born, and we were constantly given Robert Burns at school. This was a staple diet for us. So myself and most of my friends that I know, we've all kind of pulled away from Burns. We all kind of said, oh no, too much. It was given to us all through our childhood. But now as you grow up, you start to appreciate the man. You start to appreciate the fun that he had, his passion for life, his vigour, his energy, his passion for his country, his family, and also for his lady loves. And that's probably one of the areas that I find most interesting about Burns. He was definitely a man who loved to give freely. The Bothy Storytelling Podcast is sponsored once more by Calum Lykan, Storytelling and Tours, Scottish professional storyteller living in Calgary, Canada. Robert Burns. He is just an absolute legend in Scotland, and this episode is just going to be all about him. We're going to have clips from Tam O'Shanter coming all the way from Scotland. I'm going to recite a few bits, but you know what? It kind of crosses my mind that a lot of you might not even know about Burns, which we will come to later, but also about the tradition of the Burns Supper. Every year on the 25th of January, we celebrate the birth of the Bard, Rabbie Burns. And traditionally there's a big feast, and it starts with the piping in of guests. Then you get the hosts of the feast, and they do their speeches. Then the Selkirk Grace, which is what I opened the show with today. After the Selkirk Grace, the fun begins. The meal, with the piping in of the haggis. And once the haggis is there, we have the address to the haggis. Fair fa your honest sonsy face, great chieftain o' the puddin' race, aboon them a' ye tak your place, painch tripe and firm. Well, are ye worthy o' a grace as lang's my arm? The groaning trenchers there ye fill, your hurdies like a distant hill, your pin would help to mend a mill in time o' need, while through your pores the dews distill like amber bead. His knife see rustic labour dicht, and cut you up wi' ready slicht, trenching your gushing entrails bricht like ony ditch, and then, oh, what a glorious sicht, warm reeking rich. Then horn for horn they stretch and strive, deal tack the hindmost on they drive, till a' their wheel-swalled kites belive are bent like drums, that all good man must like to rive, bethankit hums. Is there that hour his French ragout, or olio that wad staw a sou, or fricassee wad mak her spew, wi' perfect scunner, looks down wi' sneering scornful view on sic a dinner. Poor devil, See him o'er his trash, as feckless as a withered rash, his spindle shank a gid whiplash, his nieve a knit. Through bloody flood or field to dash, oh how unfit. But mark the rustic haggis fed, the trembling earth resounds his tread, clap in his wally nieve a blade, he'll make it whistle, and legs and arms and heads will sned like taps o' thistle. Ye powers, wha mak mankind your care, and dish them out their bill of fare, auld Scotland wants nae skinking ware that jops in luggies. But if you wish her grateful prayer, gie her a haggis. And that was the address to the haggis. So now at this point in the Burns supper, everybody is chowing down, filling their bellies with haggis, neeps and tatties. Next, the toasts are given. All the beautiful thanks to everyone who helped in the preparation. Then comes the immortal memory of Burns. And this is the bit that I said I'd read one to you that I'd wrote about 3 or 4 years ago. So please forgive me. So of course, let's start it properly, as if we're in a Burns supper, and this is the immortal memory of Burns. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. When I was asked to give the immortal memory of Burns, the first thought that went through my mind was, what do I know about Burns? And embarrassingly, the answer was very little. This lack of knowledge is even more shocking when I tell you I actually grew up in Ayr. That's 3 miles away from where the bard was born. Burns is like gospel in Ayrshire schools. So I'm thinking I really must know something about Burns. I sat down and I racked my brains, and thankfully snippets started to come back. And my journey into Burns began. The problem is, when you're writing an immortal memory, it's where to start. That's the challenge. Most of you gathered here will know Burns, or will have been to at least one Burns supper, meaning you've heard it all before. Not a pleasant thought when you're trying to write a speech. So I read books and went online, hoping for some inspiration, and very little came. Then it dawned on me. Look inside to find the answer. Compare yourself to the bard. Something good will come out of it. So I got started. The most obvious. Now, I'm going to interject here just for a moment in this immortal memory, because do bear in mind, this was about 4 years ago. Okay? I'm about to reveal some very personal details about myself, like my age. This is a secret to one and all, and I hope you'll keep it. The most obvious age. Well, I just turned 37, and so was Burns when he shed his mortal coil. I'll admit that's not the most auspicious start, so we'll try another avenue. We're both Ayrshire boys. That's a little better, but I'm thinking still not really enough. Our birthdays, well, both born in January, me on the 18th and Burns on the 25th, 1759. Now, admittedly, that's 255 years of difference, but who'll notice? I've had a hard paper run. Should interject again, in Scotland, that's a joke. Yeah, I know, I'm not very good at delivering them. A hard paper run in Scotland generally means that you look a lot older than you are in natural life, simply because you've worked very hard and it's showing on your face. Let's continue. This is now getting somewhere, and I'm starting to get inspired. Oh, yeah, we both moved to Edinburgh as young men. He came on the back of a borrowed pony, and I drove up in an ancient automatic Fiat Panda. Close enough. But actually, by comparison, if you do know what an automatic Fiat Panda feels like, drives like, it probably gave Burns the better ride on the pony. And then there is our professions. Burns, a poet and a master of verse. Humid seal of soft affections, tenderest pledge of future bliss, dearest tie of young connections, love's first snowdrop, virgin kiss. And I'm a storyteller. We're both men of the spoken word, performers and entertainers. But it doesn't even end at that. Burns is known for his great verse, which has earned him worldwide acclaim. Yet it's his personal life which really holds our attention and has a strong influence to this very day, being the main inspiration for the Jeremy Kyle Show, although not officially credited. Another quick interjection, ladies and gents. The Jeremy Kyle Show is the UK's version of the Jerry Springer Show. Again, another joke, probably only works in the UK. Burns was a lover. He was a man who wore his heart on his sleeve, or possibly on his trousers. A man who invented the Velcro trouser fly. Again, never officially credited with this. I don't know if I thought I was trying to be funny or not. I have no idea if anyone even laughed at this, so just flow with me, folks. Go with me. And I too, when arriving in Edinburgh, embarked upon a series of affairs and wooings of the fairer sex, also known as the drunken fumble in modern times. However, Rabbie, well, he did it in style. My love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. My love is like the melody that's sweetly played in tune. How fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till a' the seas gang dry. Till a' the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun. I will love thee still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. And fare thee weel, my only love, and fare thee weel a while, and I will come again, my love, though it were 10,000 mile. By this point, I've got it in my head, we're almost the same man. And why not? I could be one of the bard's ancestors, and Rabbie's reputation plays right into my hands. In Ayrshire, we have a saying about good old Rabbie. However, decorum prevents me from uttering it in such pleasant company. We all know Burns loved the ladies, and I think we can be honest in ourselves and say that the ones that we know of are just the ones history cares to note. So in theory, there are more blood relatives out there than we know. Anyone could claim to be one of his ancestral bairns. Yet bairn or not, to everyone Burns is different. Some of us look at the farmer, a hard-working man who ploughed the soil and cultivated the land. Others see Burns in the latter years as the excise man, out every day through the harsh Scottish weather, damp and riding hard, to earn a daily crust for his rather large family. To most of the population, it's the poet. The use of the language, wordplay and tone, a master of the oral traditions, immortalised for all time. That's the Burns most of us see in our mind's eye. Yet there is one more version of the man, and that's the lovable, womanising rogue that Burns was. It's no secret that Robert was fair fond of dabbling in the art of the flesh, and often composing verse upon verse on the subject. What we will never know is which came first, the poetry that opened up the passage to pleasure, or was it true love which inspired the bard to create such beautiful verse? And Rabbie took full advantage of his craft. In fact, we all know of his loves from the innocence of youth with Nelly, his handsome Nell. Oh, once I loved a bonny lass, aye, and I love her still. And whilst that virtue warms my breast, I'll love my handsome Nell. To his wife, Jean Armour, where sits our silky sillen dame, gathering her brows like gathering storms, nursing her wrath to keep it warm. But less we forget such influences as Mary, his Highland Mary. O pale, pale now those rosy lips, aft he kissed sae fondly, and closed for awe the sparkling glance that dwell on me sae kindly. And mouldering now in silent dust that heart that loved me dearly, but still within my bosom's core shall live my Highland Mary. Then there was Anne, whose influence Burns to write the love song which he claimed was the best of his work. Yestreen I had a pint of wine, yestreen I had a pint of wine, a place where bodies saw na. Yestreen lay on this breast of mine, the golden locks of Anna. And those are just a few of the loves that Rabbie had. Some innocent like Nellie, Peggy or Agnes, yet inspired such beautiful works. Then there was the more primal and physical loves, Elizabeth, Jenny, and of course his wife, Jean, to name a few. Rabbie Burns loved blindly, loved kindly, and spent a lot of his life broken-hearted, in between the loving blindly bits. But to see her was to love her, love but her and love forever. Had we never loved sae kindly, had we never loved sae blindly, never met or never parted, we had ne'er been broken-hearted. It says it all. The man loved life and loved to love, and no more a prodigious lover will we find. Love seems to be the guiding force in Burns's life. Love for the woman in his life, love for the written verse, and love for the land and country, his country, Scotland. And in this coming year, with so many things happening in Scotland, I think Burns would have been proud and delighted with the way his country is going. In the year we have the homecoming, the Commonwealth Games, 700 years of Bannockburn, and of course the independence vote. Don't worry, this is not a political rant, but it is something Burns was fiercely for. Burns was a patriot and loved this country. Even in his youth, he grew up with fanciful thoughts of his grandfather fighting for the old pretender. Yet this influenced him greatly, and his sympathy for the Jacobite cause is shown in his two most famous songs, Charlie, He's My Darling, and It Was For Our Rightful King. It was all for our rightful king we left fair Scotland's strand. It was all for our rightful king we ere saw Irish land, my dear, we ere saw Irish land. His poems and verse show such a passion for Scotland and its history, a history that we all still feel strongly about to this day. What man or woman in this room doesn't stand proud at Robbie's unofficial national anthem, Scots Wha Hae? Scots Wha Hae, where Wallace bled, Scots wham Bruce has aften led, welcome to your gory bed, or to victory. Or who can ignore his blunt words in farewell to our Scottish glory, when he attacks the signing of the Act of Union with the infamous words of such a parcel of rogues in a nation, giving voice to his feelings on this subject. Yet these are but a few examples of his passion for his country. O Scotia, my dear, my native soil, for whom my warmest wish to heaven is sent, long may thy hardy sons of rustic toil be blessed with health and peace and sweet content. Burns's poetry still speaks to us. His life, of course, was romantic and scandal-ridden enough to be of interest, but he himself emerges as a kind and honest man, honest enough to speak to farm labourers and lords alike. Some ask, what if he lived now? How wonderful the world would be. The truth about Burns is, that he was a man born in the right time, doing the right thing, which is what he loved. Whether that be the current romance he was indulging in, or the poem or verse he was musing over. And for this, we will always be eternally grateful. A man who loved and lived life to its fullest. A man whose legacy resonates through the lands to this day. Robert Burns lived hard and sadly died young. So, ladies and gentlemen, please raise your glasses to the bard, Robert Burns. And that was a very, very old immortal memory that I'd written 4 years ago. Sorry to interject at certain points. I just felt that, maybe some clarification, because it was 4 years ago, so some of the references are a little out of date. But it gives you a feel for what happens at a Burns supper. So after the immortal memory, we move on to the address to the lassies, which is generally a fairly short piece, just acknowledging the women of Burns's life. Of course, I say short, it depends how much research has been done. And then after that, there's the reply to the lassies. Usually one of the ladies that has been asked to speak does this for an interesting and amusing bit of banter between the two presenters. After that, we move on to the works by Burns, and this bit is amazing because this is where a few people will get up and recite poetry. And of course, one of the most famous pieces of work by Burns, which is always recited at a Burns supper, is Tam O'Shanter. Now, I'm not going to recite this. I have been very lucky to be gifted an audio track from the Scottish Storytelling Centre in Edinburgh, and it's actually a great man that was very helpful for me when I was developing as a storyteller, reciting this. And it's the director of the centre, or now the director of festivals, Donald Smith. It is a live recording, so I hope you enjoy it. So sit back and enjoy Donald Smith giving you his version of Tam O'Shanter.
Now friends, this is a story with a lot of Scots words in it, okay? But you're not to worry, it just flows. The story's dead simple. This guy's having a lot of trouble getting home from the pub, okay? That's the essence of it. The wife's at home, he's been at the market, etc. Tam. He has to get home through the darkness on his horse, which is she's called Meg, or Maggie, okay? And you'll encounter this river, the River Doon, and he has to get alongside it, and then eventually he has to get across it to get home. And that becomes quite critical because of the tradition to escape the witches and demons. If you get over running water, you're safe, okay? A cutty sark is a very all-in-one nightgown, okay? It's not really supposed to be worn on its own outdoors. And a Chapman Billy's a pebble. So when Chapman Billies leave the street, and drouthy neighbours meet, as market days are wearing late and folk begin to tap the gate, while we sit boozing at the Rabbie, and getting foo and uka happy, we think na on the lang Scot smiles, the mosses, waters, slaps and stiles that lie between us and our hame, where sits our sulky, sullen dame, gathering our brews like gathering storm, nursing our wrath to keep it warm. This truth and honest Tam O'Shanter, as he a night frae Ayr did canter, old Ayr when ne'er a town surpasses, for honest men and bonny lasses. Ah, Tam, hadst thou but been so wise as ta'en thy ain wife Kate's advice, she told thee weel there was a skellum, a blethering, blustering, drunken blellum, that frae November till October, I market day thou wasna sober, that till Camelder at the miller thou sat as long as thou had siller, that every naig was ca'd a shoe on, the smith and thee got roaring foo on, that at the Lord's house, even on Sunday, thou drank the curtain gin till Monday. She prophesied that late or soon thou wad be found deep drowned in Doon, or catched wi' warlocks in the mark by Alloway's old haunted But to our tale. I merk at night time pad got planted, unca rigged. Fast by an ingle blazing finely, wi' reaming swats that drank divinely. And at his elbow, suitor Johnny, his ancient, trusty, drouthy crony. Tam looed him like a very brother, they had been foo for weeks together. The night drave on with sands and clatter, and aye the ale was growing better. The landlady and Tam grew gracious, with favours, secret, sweet and precious. The suitor told his queerest stories. The landlord's laugh was ready chorus. The storm without might rear and rustle. Tam didna mind the storm a whistle. Care, mad to see a man so happy, e'en drowned himself among the nappy. As bees flee hame wi' lades of treasure, the minutes winged their way with pleasure. Kings may be blessed, but Tam was glorious, o'er all the ills of life, victorious. But pleasures are like poppies spread. You seize the flower, the bloom is shed. Or like the snow falls in the river, a moment white, and melts forever. Or like the borealis race that flit ere you can point their place. Or like the rainbow's lovely form, evanishing amid the storm. Nae man can tether time nor tide. The hour approaches, Tam on ride. That hour, o' next black arch, the key stain. That dreary hour Tam mounts his beast in, and sick an heart he tacks the road in, as ne'er poor sinner was abroad in. The wind blew, as 'twad blown its last. The rattling showers rose on the blast, the speedy gleams the darkness swallowed. Loud, deep, and lang the thunder bellowed. That night, a child might understand. The Dio had business on his hand. Will mounted on his grey mare Meg, better never lifted leg, Tam skelpit on through doob and mire, despising wind and rain and fire, was crooning o'er some old Scots sonnet, was holding fast his good blue bonnet, was glowering round with prudent cares, lest bogles catch him unawares. Kirk Alloway was drawing nigh, where ghosts and hooligans nightly cry. By this time he was crossed the ford, where in the snow the chapman smoored, past the Burks and Meikle Stane, where drunken Charlie neck bay, through the winds by the cairn, where hunters found the murdered bairn, and near the thorn, aboon the well, where Mungo's mither hanged hersel. Before him Doon pours all his floods. The doubling storm rose through the woods. The lightnings flash from pole to pole. Near and more near the thunders roll. Glimmering through the groaning trees, Kirk Alloway seemed in a blaze. Through ilka bore the beams were glancing, and loud resounded mirth and dancing. Inspiring bold John Barleycorn, what dangers thou canst make us scorn. Wi' tippity we fear nae evil, wi' Usquaby we'll face the deal. The swat say reimed in Tammy's noddle, fair play he cared na deals a boddle. But Maggie stood recht sair astonished, to by the heel and hand admonished. She ventured forward on the light, and vow Tam saw an Unca sect, warlocks and witches in a dance. Nae cotillion bred new frae France, but hornpipes, jigs, raspays, and reels put life and metal in their heels. A winnock bunker in the east, there sat old Nick in shape of beast. A towsy type, black, grim and large, to gie them music was his charge. He screwed the pipes and gart them scurrow, till roof and rafters had it durrow. Coffins stood round like open presses that shod the dead in their last dresses. By some devilish cantrip slight, each in its called hand held a light, by which heroic Tam was able to note upon the holy table a murderer's banes and gibbetairns, twa span line wi' unchristened bairns, a thief new cutted frae a rape with his last gasp, his gabbed and gape, 5 tomahawks with blood red rusted, 5 scimitars with murder crusted, a garter which a babe had strangled, a knife a father's throat had mangled, the missing son no life bereft, the grey hairs yet stabbed to the head, with mail horrible and awful, which even to name would be unlawful. As Tammy glowered, amazed and curious, The mirth and fun grew fast and furious. The pipers loud and louder blew, the dancers quick and quicker flew. They reeled, they set, they crossed, they cleek it, to Lilka, Carlin, swat and reek it, and coosed their duddies to the work, and they link it at it in their sark. Tam, had they been quines or plump and strapping in their teens, their sarks instead of creashy flannin been snow white, 1700 linen. Their breeks of mine, my only pair, ants were plush against blue hair, I would have gied them off my herdies, for I blink of the bonny birdies, but withered beldams, old and droll, rig woody hags would spain a fall, louping and flinging in a crummock. I wonder didn't it turn my stomach. Tam kent what was foo brawly. It was I winsome wench and Wally. That night enlisted on the corps, lang after Kent on Carrick shore, for mony a beast to dead she shot, and perished mony a bonny boat, and shook baith meikle corn and beer, and held the countryside in fear. Her cutty sark o' paisley harn, that while a lassie she had worn, in longitude, though sorely scanty, it was her best, and she was vaunted. Little Kent, thy reverent granny, that sark she coughed for her wee nanny, with 12 pound Scots was all her riches, whatever grace, a dance o' witches. Hear my muse her wing one poor, sick flights are far beyond her poor, to sing how nanny lap and flang, a supple jade she was and strand, and how Tam stood like ane bewitched, and thought his very een enriched, e'en Satan glowered and fidged through fain, and hotched and blew with micht and main, till first I caper, sin another, Tam tint his reason a together, and roars out, "Well done, Cutty Sark!" And in an instant, all was dark, and scarcely had he Maggie rallied, when out the hellish legion sallied. As bees was out with plunging fight, when plundering herds assail their bite, as open pussy's mortal foes, when pop she starts before their nose, as eager runs the market crowd, when catch the thief resounds aloud, so Maggie runs, the witches follow, when mony a neildrick screech and hollow. Tam, thou get thy faring, in hell they'll roast thee like a herring. Now do thy see the utmost meg, and win the key stain o' the brig, there thou at them thy tail may toss, a running stream they dare not cross. But ere the key stain she could make, the fiend a tail she had to shake, for nanny, far before the rest, hard upon noble Maggie press, and flew at Tam with furious ettle. Little was she Maggie's mettle, I spring brought off her master hail, left behind her ain grey tail. The Carlin cocked her by the rump, and left poor Maggie scarce a stump. Now, what this tale of truth shall read, ilk man and mother's son tak heed, whene'er to drink ye are inclined, or cutty sarks rin in your mind. Think, ye may buy the joys our dear, remember Tam O'Shanter's beer.
And that was Donald Smith from the Scottish Storytelling Centre in Edinburgh and his version of Tam O'Shanter. An absolute just joy to listen to. I love the man. I love how he tells, and if you get the opportunity to ever meet him, when he laughs, he has the most bombastic laugh that can shake the walls. An absolute amazing man to spend time and chat to. I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I'm still recovering from my Burns Day experience. It was a pretty fantastic day. Chats, conversation, good friends, music, Burns, food. It was all there. And I felt that this would be a good opportunity to kind of go into my recommendation of a podcast, or I've decided to expand it, YouTube videos as well. And there's a couple out there who I work closely with called Drop Bear and Panda. Now, I'm not going to mention their names beyond that, But let's just say the reason I've been so rough may have something to do with Drop Bear supplying too much whiskey over Burns Day. But Drop Bear and Panda do these amazing YouTube videos and collaborations with artists all over. My CD, Scottish Bedtime Stories, is one of those collaborations. So have a look at their YouTube video. Go to their website, www.dropbearandpanda.tv. So have a look at that. Find them on YouTube. Find them on Facebook. Follow their antics. They've got some great videos up there. Some of them are actually currently up for awards down in Los Angeles. So these guys are well worth following and enjoying the fun that they are. But let's get back into Burns. It's always good to promote and help out other podcasters and YouTubers. Please do follow Drop Bear and Panda for some great fun and some great videos. But now, it's that moment that you're all waiting for every episode. It's Calum's book recommendation. Again, I will try and maybe get a jingle set up. I don't know. It's, we'll see how it goes. Well, we've been on Burns, and to be honest, there's so many books out there. There's great biographies, there's great information, there's great collections of his books. So it's a difficult one to recommend. So I'm not going to be overly specific. I will tell you, however, one of the ones that I use, and it's beautifully simple, is Robert Burns In Your Pocket. It's by Waverley Books, and it's got a little bit of a biography and selected poems and songs from our national poet. And it's a beautiful little collection which literally slips into an inside of your jacket pocket. You can carry it about, I think there's probably about 30, 40, maybe 50 collections in here, as well as some information about them. And it's one that I got actually from the Scottish Storytelling Centre in Edinburgh. So it's one I treasure dearly because it's easy to carry, it's a nice light read, but it's filled with some great poems, songs and background to Burns. But that's my recommendation. But as I say, any book on Robert Burns with poems, there's huge collections out there, the smaller compact ones. Just go out, find yourself some Burns and fall in love with the Scottish bard. We've spoken a lot about Burns today. We've spoken about his passions and desires, and I have focused a lot on his women, but that was a huge influence for him, all the loves of his life. And one of them from Edinburgh seemed to be a great influence, Nancy McElhose. From what we understand, it's one of the very few unconsummated love affairs that he had, not for want of trying, knowing Burns, but both were married and they decided to communicate through letters. Nancy came up with this wonderful idea. She would be known as Clorinda, and Burns would be known as Sylvander, a very romantic sort of concept. And they wrote back and forth for many periods of time, expressing love and caring for each other. Probably Burns showing a little bit more passion and fever, which was always his way. But it was said that eventually Burns could take it no more. He had to be with her. And it was said one day he went to her house in Edinburgh, banged on the door, demanding to see his Clorinda. And the maid answered the door, Jenny Clow. And Jenny said that her mistress wasn't there. Nancy was out for the day. And Burns must have been broken-hearted that he wasn't able to see this beauty and to be with her. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to lie to you. And I'm not going to say all was a loss. Because as history tells us, 9 months after that day, Jenny Clow gave birth to a baby boy. And I'm not even going to bother filling in the blanks. And with that little anecdotal bombshell, ladies and gents, I think we'll call that an end to yet another Bothy Storytelling Podcast. This one has all been about Robert Burns. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've enjoyed some of the recitals that we've put in today. Our next episode will be coming up shortly, and I'm not going to spoil too much, but I'm hoping, if all goes well, it's going to be including a live recording of a storytelling show that's coming up. I'm a part of it with another wonderful storyteller and musician in Calgary, and I would love to be able to give you that if you're not able to come in person.